The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and faint traces of coffee, a scent Ava would come to associate with new beginnings and cold farewells. It was a mild spring morning in Oregon, the kind of day when the sunlight slips gently through the hospital window, casting soft shadows on the linoleum floor. Outside, sparrows chirped, filling the air with their simple melodies, oblivious to the weight of the moment inside. 4 minutes apart, Ava and Emma Harper entered the world. The first Ava, quiet and small, with wide, curious eyes that barely blinked. 4 minutes later, Emma screamed a sharp, insistent cry that echoed through the delivery room. Those 4 minutes would carve their destinies. In the eyes of their parents, the difference was a chasm as wide as the ocean. Ava, the silent one. Emma, the beloved, the chosen. Their mother Linda held Emma first, whispering soft words of adoration, while Ava's tiny fingers curled against the sterile blanket, unnoticed. Their father David smiled at Emma's loud vigor, but hardly glanced at Ava's fragile form. From that day, Ava learned a lesson no child should have to learn, that love could be measured in moments in attention, and that she was always just a step behind. Years passed like pages torn from a book, some filled with color, others blank and fading. At home, the divide grew with each passing day. Linda's eyes sparkled when Emma came home with a perfect report card, her voice lilting as she announced, "My little angel is the pride of the school." But when Ava quietly brought home her own awards trophies from spelling bee's certificates for perfect attendance, her mother's praise was always a reluctant nod or a distracted, "That's nice, dear." Ava learned to read between the lines. She understood the glances that passed over her, the hugs never quite reached her, the whispered comparisons that branded her as just Charlotte the invisible twin. At school, Ava sought refuge in books and music. The library was her sanctuary, a place where the silence was not a punishment but a comfort. She devoured stories about heroes and heroines who overcame impossible odds, who carved their own paths in worlds that often tried to erase them. Her guitar became an extension of herself, its strings the voice she never dared raise at home. One cold autumn afternoon, Ava sat on the worn steps of the school auditorium, clutching her music notebook filled with scratchy handwriting and fragile lyrics. Emma's laughter echoed from inside, rehearsing for the school play, the lead role naturally. Ava closed her eyes, letting the chill of the air mix with the ache inside her chest. The contrast between them was stark. Emma, radiant, confident, adored. Ava, quiet, hardworking, overlooked. She often wondered what it would be like to be seen, to be held and praised, to matter. But she had learned a survival skill early: to keep silent, to hide pain behind a smile, to work twice as hard for half the recognition. Her parents' favoritism was not cruel, it was subtle and insidious. They bought Emma a brand new bike with a flower basket. Ava inherited an old rusty one with squeaky brakes. For ballet class, Emma's custom-made, sparkling white tutu dazzled the room, while Ava's hand-me-down costume hung loosely faded and torn. When Emma fell off the backyard slide and scraped her knee, their mother rushed out, trembling with worry and tears. When Ava tumbled from the tallest apple tree, dirt streaked across her face, and blood ran down her scraped knees, her father glanced through the window and said, "Let her learn to be tough." No warm embraces followed, just a bandage and a brisk command to wash up. Despite it all, Ava found moments of light. Her grandmother Margaret was the one who truly saw her. Visiting from Montana, her presence was like sunshine breaking through a storm. She called Ava Little Lahi, a name whispered softly, as if a secret, the only name that ever made Ava feel special. Once, when Ava remained silent, as Emma showed off a sparkling crystal bracelet, her grandmother quietly pressed a wooden hair clip into her hand. Not expensive, but one of a kind. Just like you. That clip became Ava's talisman, a small but powerful reminder that she was worthy, that she existed beyond the shadows. At school, Ava's talents began to shine in their own quiet way. She wrote stories and poems filled with unspoken truths and secret dreams. Her essays won awards. Her articles were published in the school newsletter. Teachers praised her maturity and insight. But at home, her achievements were met with indifferent, "Don't let it get to your head," or comparisons to Emma's raw talent. The unfairness cut deep, but Ava refused to let it break her. She learned to fill the silence with determination, to find validation in her own progress. High school brought even greater challenges. Emma excelled in art and social circles. Ava threw herself into literature, music, and volunteer work. She joined the school newspaper and performed at open mic nights, her voice finally reaching ears that wanted to listen. But at home, the chasm remained. Dinner conversations revolved around Emma's latest accolades, while Ava's triumphs were rarely mentioned. Her parents' love felt conditional, tied to their own expectations and blind spots. Ava grappled with feelings of invisibility, but nurtured a growing fire within the fierce desire to define her own worth. When Ava was accepted to a prestigious university's music program, the bittersweet mix of pride and pain was overwhelming. Her parents' muted response and Emma's tentative congratulations underscored the gap that had never closed. But for Ava, the acceptance letter was more than an opportunity. It was a lifeline. She packed her bags with trembling hands, carrying with her the hopes of a girl who had learned to fight for herself. The city was a vast unknown, a place where Ava could finally carve a space free from shadows. The train rattled steadily as it carried Ava away from everything she had ever known. Through the window, the Oregon countryside gave way to the sprawling urban landscape of the city. Tall buildings slicing the sky, streets buzzing with unfamiliar faces and hurried footsteps. Her heart pounded with a mix of excitement and fear. This was the moment she had dreamed of, the chance to rewrite her story on her own terms. But the weight of leaving behind home, family, and the girl she used to be pressed heavy on her chest. She clutched her worn notebook tightly, the pages filled with lyrics, poems, and sketches, fragments of a life both lived and imagined. The university campus was bustling, filled with students who seemed so sure of themselves. Ava felt small, a quiet newcomer navigating a sea of confident voices. Her dorm room was cramped, far from the spacious bedrooms Emma had boasted about. The walls were bare, the paint chipped, and the window looked out onto a brick wall. But it was hers. She unpacked slowly, hanging the wooden hair clip on a pinboard, a talisman against loneliness. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of new classes, late-night study sessions, and awkward social encounters. Ava kept her head down, focused on learning, pushing herself harder than ever before. She attended music theory lectures, practiced piano in the silent practice rooms, and joined the campus radio station to share her own playlists, quiet acts of carving space. Though the loneliness sometimes gnawed at her, she reminded herself of why she was here, to build a life that no one could take away. One rainy evening, she found herself wandering into a dimly lit open mic night at a local cafe. Nervous but determined, Ava took the stage guitar in hand. Her fingers trembled as she strummed the first chords, but as her voice rose raw and honest, the room fell silent. Her song spoke of invisible scars, silent battles, and the fragile hope that one day she would be seen. When the last note faded, applause filled the room. For the first time, Ava felt a spark, a connection that had nothing to do with family or blood. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was beginning to live. The city was hard, sometimes cruel. Money was tight, and balancing schoolwork with part-time jobs left little time to breathe. But Ava learned to find beauty in small moments, a smile from a stranger, a poem that perfectly captured her feelings, a late-night conversation with a friend who truly listened. Slowly, the girl who once hid in the shadows began to step into the light. Ava's days quickly filled with a relentless rhythm, classes, work shifts, practice sessions, and stolen moments of quiet reflection. Her mornings began before dawn, rushing to her part-time job at the campus cafe, where the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the low hum of sleepy students. She greeted customers with a polite smile, though exhaustion tugged at her every muscle. By midday, she attended lectures in crowded halls, furiously taking notes, determined to absorb every bit of knowledge. Afternoons were spent in the music practice rooms, where the sound of piano keys echoed off the walls, her fingers sometimes faltering but never giving up. One day, Professor Richards, a seasoned musician with a reputation for demanding excellence, noticed Ava's dedication. After a particularly intense class on composition, he approached her. "You have potential, Ava," he said, his eyes sharp but encouraging. "But raw talent alone won't take you far. You need to push beyond comfort, face your fears, and own your voice." His words struck a chord deep within her. That night, Ava stayed up late, rewriting a song she had been struggling with. She poured into it all the frustration, hope, and longing she had kept locked away for years. When she finally played it for her roommates, the room fell silent. Tears shimmered in one girl's eyes. "That's powerful," she whispered. Yet not all days were filled with praise. At times, Ava faced rejection. Auditions where she was told her voice wasn't commercial enough, scholarship applications denied with vague reasons, social invitations declined with polite excuses. Each no chipped away at her confidence, threatening to drown the fragile flame she was trying to nurture. But Ava remembered the wooden hair clip her grandmother gave her, a reminder that she was one of a kind. She clung to that truth, letting it guide her through moments of doubt. Friendships began to form, tentative but genuine. One of her closest friends, Maya, was a fellow musician from a difficult background. They bonded over late-night jam sessions and shared dreams of stages yet to be conquered. Together, they navigated the challenges of university life, study marathons, heartbreaks, and moments of sheer joy. Maya often reminded Ava, "You're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone dim your light." Meanwhile, back home, Ava's phone rarely buzzed with messages from her family. Occasional texts from Emma were polite but distant. Her parents called on birthdays and holidays, their voices formal, conversations superficial. Ava didn't expect more. Her family's love had always been conditional, but in the city she found a new family, friends, mentors, and most importantly, herself. One evening after a successful recital, Ava stood alone on the rooftop of her dormitory. The city lights stretched endlessly before her, a constellation of possibilities. She closed her eyes and whispered to the wind, "I'm here. I'm not invisible anymore." And in that moment, beneath the vast sky, Ava felt truly free. Despite the bright lights and new friendships, shadows from Ava's past often crept into her thoughts. Nights were the hardest, quiet moments when loneliness gnawed at her, and memories of home whispered in the dark. She remembered the sharp contrast between the warmth her sister Emma received and the cold distance she endured. The laughter at family dinners that never included her, the silent comparisons, the constant feeling of being less than. Sometimes she wondered if she'd ever truly escape the weight of those years. One afternoon, a letter arrived from home. Her mother's handwriting curled across the page, tentative yet familiar. "Dear Charlotte, we miss you. Things aren't the same without you here. Emma is asking about you more. We hope you're doing well." Ava's heart tightened. She folded the letter carefully, placing it atop the worn hair clip on her desk. Was this an olive branch, a sign of change, or just another reminder of how far she'd come and how complicated home could be? Determined not to be pulled back into old patterns, Ava replied with honesty and grace. She wrote about her life, her struggles, her hopes. She did not demand apologies or explanations, but extended an invitation to understand her, truly see her as she was now. Sending the letter felt like releasing a burden, no longer carrying the weight of unspoken words alone. Meanwhile, at school, Ava's talent blossomed. Her professors lauded her compositions. Her performances captivated audiences. She secured an internship at a local recording studio, learning the intricacies of production and collaboration. Each success chipped away the self-doubt that had shadowed her for so long. Her friendship with Maya deepened into a sisterhood of shared dreams and mutual support. Together, they navigated the pressures of deadlines and the exhilaration of creating something meaningful. Maya's unwavering belief in Ava reminded her daily of her own worth. Yet Ava knew healing was a journey, not a destination. She carried the scars of neglect, but also the strength forged in overcoming it. The past was a part of her story, but it would not define her future. The internship at the recording studio became a turning point for Ava. Each day she absorbed new skills, mixing tracks, arranging melodies, working alongside seasoned producers who challenged her to grow. She found joy not only in performing, but in shaping sound, bringing stories to life through music's subtle textures. Her confidence soared as she realized her passion could be more than a refuge. It could be a career. One evening, Ava received a phone call that stirred a mix of excitement and apprehension. Her mother's voice was tentative, almost unfamiliar. "Charlotte, your father and I would like to come visit. We want to see you, to support you." Ava hesitated. Years of silence and neglect had carved deep walls, but the invitation was sincere. She agreed. When her parents arrived, Ava prepared nervously, unsure of what to expect. The reunion was awkward at first, filled with hesitant words and long pauses. Yet as days passed, conversation softened. Her mother apologized for the past, acknowledging the pain of favoritism and distance. Her father admitted he hadn't known how to show love in the way Ava needed. Emma, too, expressed regret for the unspoken rivalry and hoped to build a genuine sisterhood. Though forgiveness was not instantaneous, Ava felt a cautious hope. She saw cracks in the walls of silence, windows opening to new possibilities. Her family was imperfect, but so was she. They were beginning to learn how to be present, not just in proximity, but in heart. Back at the studio, Ava's work blossomed. Her first single, a haunting ballad inspired by her journey, gained attention online. Listeners connected deeply to her raw honesty, sharing messages of gratitude and solidarity. For the first time, Ava's voice reached beyond the shadows into the hearts of strangers who understood. One night, standing under the city's glowing skyline, Ava whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." The past had shaped her, but the future was hers to compose. With growing recognition, Ava faced choices that tested her integrity. Record labels approached, offering lucrative contracts, but often with strings attached. They wanted a polished, marketable image, a voice that fit their mold. Ava struggled with the temptation to compromise her authenticity for fame and security. She spent long nights pondering her path, wrestling with fear and ambition. Her friends and mentors reminded her of her journey, the girl who fought to be seen, who refused to be silenced. "Don't trade your light for someone else's spotlight," Maya advised firmly. With renewed clarity, Ava chose to forge her own way. She signed with a small independent label that valued her vision and voice. As her music reached wider audiences, Ava received invitations to speak at schools and conferences. She shared her story of invisibility, resilience, and self-love, inspiring others who felt lost or unseen. Her words resonated deeply, reminding listeners that worth is not given but claimed. At home, relationships continued to heal slowly. Phone calls became more frequent, messages more heartfelt. Though scars remained, Ava no longer sought their approval. She had found family in those who truly supported her. One crisp morning, Ava stood before a mirror, hair clip glinting softly in the sunlight. She smiled, seeing not the invisible girl she once was, but a woman who had embraced her worth. The power to choose, to forgive, to love, to live authentically was hers. And with that power, she stepped confidently into the future she had earned. As Ava's star rose, so too did the complexities of her relationship with Emma. The two sisters, once distant and divided by years of silent competition, now found themselves navigating uncharted territory, the fragile beginnings of reconciliation. One rainy afternoon, Ava received a message from Emma. "Can we meet? I want to talk." Nervous but hopeful, Ava agreed. They met at a quiet cafe, the soft murmur of rain outside matching the tentative atmosphere between them. Emma's eyes held a mix of remorse and vulnerability. "I've spent so long trying to live up to expectations, Mom's, Dad's, even my own, but I never understood what you went through," she confessed. Ava listened as Emma spoke of pressure, loneliness, and guilt over the years they had lost. For the first time, they shared their truths, raw, unguarded, and real. The walls built by years of misunderstanding began to crumble. They talked for hours, bridging gaps with laughter and tears. Emma admitted, "I was jealous, too jealous of your strength, your quiet courage. I thought I had it all, but I didn't have you." Ava smiled softly. "We were both lost in our own ways. Maybe now we can find our way together." From that day, their bond grew not from competition, but from empathy and shared history. They supported each other's dreams, celebrated successes, and faced challenges as sisters, imperfect yet united. Back at the studio, Ava composed a song inspired by their conversation, a melody of forgiveness and hope. It became a favorite among fans, a testament to the healing power of honesty and love. As seasons changed, Ava's life unfolded with new colors, moments of joy, challenges, and unexpected discoveries. Her music career flourished, but what brought her true fulfillment was the family she was building by choice. Friends who stood by her during late-night rehearsals, mentors who believed in her vision, and the sister who had become a true companion. Though her parents remained a complicated presence, Ava had learned to set boundaries, protecting her peace and prioritizing her well-being. One summer evening, Ava invited Emma to her apartment, a modest space filled with sunlight, plants, and framed photographs of memories they were now creating together. They cooked dinner, shared stories, and planned future collaborations. The past was still there, but it no longer defined them. Ava also reconnected with her grandmother Margaret, who remained a beacon of unconditional love. Their conversations were a sanctuary, a reminder of the strength rooted in kindness and acceptance. At a charity concert organized by Ava's Foundation for Young Artists, she stood on stage looking out at a sea of hopeful faces. Her heart swelled with gratitude. The journey from invisibility to spotlight had not been easy, but it had been hers, carved with courage and resilience. As she sang the final note, the applause washing over her, Ava smiled. She had found her voice, her family, and most importantly, herself. Despite all the progress Ava had made, shadows from her past sometimes echoed unexpectedly. A familiar song on the radio, a scent in the air, or a fleeting memory would transport her back to lonely nights and silent tears. One evening, after a long day of rehearsals and meetings, Ava found herself sitting alone in her apartment, clutching the wooden hair clip, the symbol of her journey. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. We're proud of you." Simple words yet heavy with meaning. Ava hesitated before replying, then typed, "Thank you." It was a small bridge, a fragile thread connecting two worlds. Meanwhile, Ava's foundation was expanding, reaching more young artists who, like her, sought to be heard. She traveled to different cities, sharing her story and music, inspiring others to claim their own voices. Each encounter strengthened her resolve and reminded her that healing is a collective journey. At home, family gatherings became less tense, more genuine. Though old wounds lingered, forgiveness and understanding were growing roots. Emma and Ava often talked late into the night, planning not just music, but their lives intertwined yet independent. Ava knew her past would always be a part of her, but it no longer defined her limits. She had transformed pain into purpose and visibility into influence. And in that transformation, she found freedom. Years later, Ava stood before a crowd at a grand auditorium, her voice steady and sure. The journey from the quiet girl, overlooked and overshadowed, to the woman inspiring thousands was a testament to resilience. She spoke not just of music, but of courage, self-love, and the power to define one's own worth. Her story echoed in the hearts of many, a beacon for those still searching for their light. Looking out at the sea of faces, Ava smiled softly. She had finally found her home, not in a place or a person, but within herself. And that light, once dimmed, now shone brighter than ever.